Breaking the wall between science and video games. Attila Szantner. Massively multiplayer online science. Switzerland.
I work in citizen science. We crowdsource research, invite the public to contribute to the research process, try to fill the gap between people and science. Citizen science is an amazing phenomenon, and I think one of the best tools for science engagement. Unfortunately, while it produces amazing results, for most participants, citizen science is just too repetitive and quickly becomes boring, and so they leave. And then we have video games. Almost 3 billion people play video games, and this number is rapidly growing. It's not a nerdy pastime anymore. This is mainstream. It's the fastest growing form of entertainment. It's safe to say that the day is not too far when it will be hard to find people who don't play games at all. And game designers managed to solve this equation, how to turn repetitive into fun and engaging, something that we do voluntarily. In retrospect, our solution, as so many other innovations, is a no-brainer. Why on earth would we not want to collaborate with video games? Why would research ignore these massive communities? So we set up massively multiplayer online science to connect citizen science with major AAA video games as a seamless gaming experience, teaming up with experts of the game industry to gain access to their decades-long expertise and also to their communities of millions. Creating, together with EVE Online, we created a series of mini-games called Project Discovery. And in Borderlands 3, we created Borderlands Science. And just recently, we announced our collaboration with NetEase, which is the second biggest Chinese game developer. Creating these experiences in so many different environments is a clear proof of how highly transferable and flexible this concept is. Transferability is also highlighted by the wide range of different research projects that players helped with, from COVID research to analyzing microbiome DNA, all the way to finding new exoplanets. Our approach was highly collaborative, involving all parties, researchers, game designers, and the gamer communities, right from the beginning when designing these experiences. But of course, these projects were not only about accumulating massive amounts of data. We created opportunities for players to interact with researchers, talk to them in person, watch their live presentation at events. We created avatars for researchers in the game. We ran Reddit Ask Me Anything sessions, live Twitch streams for thousands of players. We created the first real live citizen science tournament. And players created tons of content, videos, wiki pages, full-fledged courses, even a poetry contest about Project Discovery. The impact of the project surpassed all our expectations. We engaged over 3 million players, and the 3 million players contributed with over 500 million solutions to scientific puzzles. These are mind-blowing figures, but let me put it into perspective. When we launched Borderlands Science, the first day we collected 5 times more data than researchers during 10 years. This is how substantial the collaboration between games and science can be. 3 million participants is a lot, but the impact of the project is far more reaching, with hundreds of articles praising these collaborations in the most prestigious journals, from The New Yorker to Nature Biotechnology, getting this message out to tens of millions. I believe that our projects change how we think about video games and open up new horizons for citizen science and science engagement. When I was a kid, this is how I fell in love with multiplayer games. Fast forward a couple of decades, and we have games where millions of players are writing a shared story. We have games where kids learn. We have major live music concerts in video games. We have games where people spend millions of years together to solve puzzles. The future of being human is digital. The pandemic only gave a boost to these fundamental trends that a large part of our lives are moving into digital spaces. And it is clear that games play a central role in this transition. Games already provide spaces for meaningful occupation, for social interaction, and for all kinds of creativity. And if this is true, then it is an imperative for us as a society to find clever ways to extract value from all this time that we spend in these virtual worlds, like doing science. Thank you.
Whoa. Another video games project. I'm really happy. I think I'm one of the 3 million that you already mentioned playing video games. By the way, if you have any beta version of a game that you want to test, sign me up. Really, I have a great experience of playing games. Ask my wife. And the computer cafes around my house. Sometimes my wife kicks me out. But anyways, let's have some questions now from our audience and from our jury. Do we have any questions? Yes, we have a question here.
What do these games actually look like for players?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly go. No, I can't go back, sorry. There was one slide where you saw, for example, the Tetris-like Candy Crush Tetris game. That's a multiple sequence alignment, DNA multiple sequence alignment minigame in Borderlands.
Cool. Yeah, we have another question here from one of our audience.
What kind of solutions were the players contributing to? Can you name 1 or 2 examples? And how does that work? Like, how did they actually do that? I can't imagine how it works.
So the first project was together with the Human Protein Atlas, where we showed microscopy images of human cells, where the green staining marked one certain protein, and they had to choose one or several classes where they appear. The second project was an exoplanet search project, where we showed light curves of stars, and we were asking players to mark transit events. And then now we're running a clustering problem in flow cytometry that helps COVID research. And as I mentioned, there's this multiple sequence alignment, DNA multiple sequence alignment project.
Oh, great. Just imagine playing a game and discovering a new exoplanet. Yeah, so we have a question from one of our jury members.
Yeah, really interesting. I just want to be a bit clearer about what the participants get out of this beyond playing a game. So, for instance, are they listed as co-authors on the papers that come out? Do they have some educational experience about the proteins, or what do they gain from the experience?
Yes, all these. So they were listed, and they get. We use all opportunities to make it as educative as possible. Of course, there's always a limit in these video games because their primary goal is not to solve scientific problems, but to entertain people, so they don't want to break immersion. But we put as much scientifically relevant content in these games as possible. I was really surprised, for example, with Borderlands Science, they created an amazing trailer, which is actually used by the research team now to explain the project, because so well it's done. It was done with Mayim Bialik, who is one of the stars of Big Bang Theory, but she also has a PhD in neuroscience, so she represents perfectly the 2 crazy sides of the story. And I was very pleased to see that actually it got into games. So all players watch a 1.5-minute video about why microbiome DNA research is important, and about Microsat Initiative and the American Gut Project.
Great, fabulous. Yeah, we can have one more question, or maybe 2 questions, actually. Yep.
What is the percentage of people from, like, the Global South that play your games?
Sorry?
From the Global South, not meaning developing countries, whatever the right term is for that.
I don't want to dodge this question, but I don't have information, demographic information of the players. But as I put it in the presentation, there are 3 billion people who are playing games. And actually, there are differences between genres or tools. For example, mobile games are much more prevalent in developing countries. They're simply much more accessible. But I think it's really not far that games will be as ubiquitous as film, so everybody will do it.
Yeah, I think we have time to one more question from our online audience. Yep.
Perfect. Do you have any data on how many of your audiences were engaging with the subjects presented for the first time, and if they continued this engagement beyond gameplay?
So we have some examples. We done a research in a EU Horizon program. Unfortunately, I cannot still talk about that because it hasn't been published, but we see that players who engaged with these scientific activities in-game, we we could measure behavioral changes, which is really interesting. But also we have some examples, like I remember when a player contacted me and the Human Protein Atlas because he wanted to give a 1-hour talk at a player event about biology and about microbiology and the human protein. That was just beautiful, that it was not us who were preaching about it, but actually it was taken on and over by players.
Can we squeeze in one more question? Fabulous. Can we have another question from one of our juries here?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to get a bit of better understanding. I mean, you mentioned the Human Protein Atlas, so it's about protein interactions and so on. How do you translate it into a game? Yeah, so is it just finding something, or is it? Can you make that a bit, bring that to life? Yeah.
So one of the core parts or concept is the separation of concerns. What I've seen in citizen science is often that scientists try to make a game. Maybe they have some advisors, but what we do is actually we ask professionals of the game industry to create the experiences because they know their community, they know their game, they know what fits best. And then researchers are actually presenting the problem, defining what should be solved, and they participate in science communication. And we are making a connection between these two parties. A good example is actually Borderlands Science, because that was not something that was new. That was based on Philo, which is one of the most successful citizen science projects out there, run by McGill University. What we did is, this Philo project was taken over by Borderlands or Gearbox, that's the company behind Gearbox game designers. They redesigned it, made some minor modifications, which was really interesting because researchers told that those minor modifications actually were very interesting in regards with the scientific output of the project.
That's okay. You can finish your sentence. Yeah, it's okay. You can finish your sentence, yeah.
No, basically that's it, that professional game designers are creating these mini-games inside these big virtual worlds that give the context to it.
Great, fabulous. So a massive round of applause here, guys, for our engager. Thank you very much.